So if you take vitamin D3 supplements, then you are going to die. Yes, you will die if you take vitamin D3 supplements. This thing will kill you. At least that's what a vitamin D video on YouTube, and this is a mainstream channel. This is a mainstream news media.
That vitamin D can also be deadly. You can die if you take too much of it.
This is one of the most ridiculous videos that I have seen on YouTube. So I am going to watch this video with you guys and I'm going to share my thoughts. So let's get started.
It is the new elixir. Vitamin D is being prescribed and popped by every second person. Influencers are recommending vitamin D for skin care. Family WhatsApp groups are making a case for it in post-COVID care.
So you notice how negative her tone is when she's talking about vitamin D. She's almost trying to insinuate that vitamin D is some kind of a shady thing, something that is bad for you. So right out of the gate, it seems like she has an agenda. So this is like a very biased reporting. Okay, but I will give her the benefit of doubt. Let's keep watching.
Medical stores are selling vitamin D supplements as essentials. But no one is telling you that vitamin D can also be deadly. You can die if you take too much of it.
If you take too much of it. You know what else is deadly? Water. If you drink too much water, you will die. And if you think I'm kidding, go read about it. Anything, and that includes something as benign as water, if you take too much of it, you will die. So that doesn't automatically make vitamin D deadly. So the biased reporting here is off the charts. It's borderline ridiculous.
In fact, people have been dying. So it makes sense.
People have been dying, but she does not cite any reference. Like nothing is referenced in the video description. So how many people have died from vitamin D overdose? Who are the people? Who exactly are these people who are dying? The way she's saying people are dying, right? Okay. So can you show me some data? Who died? Who died from vitamin D overdose? Let's keep watching.
To spare a few minutes from your busy schedule and take a quick crash course on vitamin D. First things first, what is it? And don't get fooled by the name. Vitamin D is not a vitamin. It's a pro-hormone.
Yeah, so see again, did you notice? Vitamin D is not a vitamin, it's a pro-hormone. So what? If it's a pro-hormone, that actually makes it even more vital. That means vitamin D is as important as testosterone or estrogen in women or your thyroid hormones. Hormones are almost like, the firmware in your phone or your computer. They are key for all your organs to work properly. So if vitamin D is a hormone, and she's right, vitamin D is actually a hormone, which means if you are deficient in vitamin D, it's going to wreck not just your bones or calcium absorption, it's going to wreck whole bunch of things in your body. So vitamin D being a hormone is not a bad thing. That just illustrates how important it is for the normal functioning of our body.
What does vitamin D do? It makes your bones and teeth stronger. It also has anti-inflammatory properties and it helps build immunity.
Okay, so now finally she says something which I agree. It helps with your bones, that everybody knows, right? That is 100-year-old research. But the modern research now tells us that vitamin D plays a crucial role in our immune system. Vitamin D can actually bind with many receptors in our cells, including immune cells and cells in our vital organs. And there are a whole bunch of studies that have been done which conclusively points to the fact that vitamin D is very important for the whole bunch of functioning, inflammation, reducing inflammation, boosting our immune system, fighting autoimmune conditions, and that this includes stuff like Hashimoto. Now I know this not because I am a doctor. By the way, I want to make it clear to everybody, I'm not a doctor, but I'm someone who has suffered from autoimmune condition, specifically Hashimoto, which has messed with my thyroid, and this is one of the reasons why I started learning about vitamin D. And so the more I learn about vitamin D, and then the more I come across these propaganda videos from mainstream channel. By the way, this channel is WION. They claim to be a news organization. They are mostly catering to Indian audience, is what my understanding is. They also have some Russian propaganda, because I saw a few videos which were very pro-Russian. So I don't know if this is a Russian channel or what's the deal with this, but they have almost 8 million subscribers, right? So if some layman is watching this video, they might think that, hey, this looks like a mainstream video from a mainstream news organization, and they might actually take these things seriously.
What are the sources of this vitamin D? Sunlight, fatty fish, the likes of salmon and tuna. Egg yolks are also a good source of vitamin D, and so are cheese, mushrooms, and fortified milk.
Now, one thing that I will point out, and this was something that eventually my doctor told me, is that as you grow older, your body's ability to synthesize vitamin D when you go out in sun, it starts dropping, and your body's ability to absorb vitamin D from these food sources that she is pointing here, that also goes down. But the problem with all these food sources, fatty fish, egg yolk, cheese, mushroom, the problem is that the amount of vitamin D that your body can absorb from these food sources is actually very low. So your best source of vitamin D is going to be sunlight. You go out in the sun and your body will synthesize vitamin D. Now, if you are healthy and if you are young, then that probably will suffice. But if you're somebody like me who is in his mid 40s, and if you have a brown skin color, if you are not Caucasian, for example, you have a darker skin color, and on top of that, if you have some kind of autoimmune condition, or if you have one of these, chronic fatigue, these diseases can actually deplete your vitamin D. And in these cases, you can spend 3 hours in sun every day and you will still not be able to synthesize the amount of vitamin D that your body needs. So making a claim that, hey, you can get vitamin D, just do these things, that's again not true. If you think that your vitamin D levels are low, the best thing that you can do is get a vitamin D test. So ask your doctor to write you a vitamin D test, and then most likely your insurance, at least here in United States, your insurance will cover for vitamin D. And if they don't cover for it, you can actually go and order it yourself. I think it will cost you anywhere from $50 to $100. So it's not that expensive. So let me show you my vitamin test that I got done. So this is my vitamin D 25OH, that's the name of the test, and the last one was July 6, 2023, and I am at 66 nanogram per milliliter. Now 66 nanogram per milliliter is not high. Initially when I was consulting with my older doctor, that guy was saying, hey, you should be around 30. And that number is actually obsolete. 30 is the bare minimum that you need for your bones to be healthy and for the optimal absorption of calcium. The bare minimum. It's actually the level that you need to be so that you don't get diseases like rickets and all these diseases that little children, infants get if they are vitamin D deficient. But if you want to be healthy, if you want to have strong immune system so that you can fight virus and bacteria and you don't have inflammation like these autoimmune diseases, deplete vitamin D in patients who have these diseases, these people need to take supplement to boost their vitamin D level to somewhere around 60-65. My doctor told me, my new doctor who actually knows a thing or two about my condition, because boy, my old doctor was for a lack of better word, that guy was a complete dumbass. So I basically changed my doctor. I found somebody who actually knows a thing or two about these things, and so she told me that aim for around 65. If you go above 65, if you are below 100 nanograms per milliliter, it's okay. If you go above 100, then you run the chance of vitamin D toxicity, which is hypercalcemia. So that can become a problem if you go above 100. But if you are at around 65 or so, that's perfect. That level means your body has enough resources. Vitamin D, think of it as like a fuel that your body will use when it is fighting infection, when it is fighting invading virus and bacteria. Your immune system will utilize vitamin D to mount an attack. And this is the reason why when people get infected with COVID virus, their vitamin D level just depletes. So there are many research papers that were published. There was one very exciting research paper that was published by Israeli scientists, and they showed that people had healthy levels of vitamin D and then they got COVID and their vitamin D level went down, but they were able to fight the virus and they did not end up hospitalized. But there were some other people who had low vitamin D levels, so they were like around 20 nanograms per milliliter, and then when they got COVID virus, since they did not have whole lot of vitamin D resources to begin with, when they got hit by COVID virus, they fell sick and they were hospitalized, and some of these folks unfortunately died. So your low vitamin D level is actually deadly. You are basically running on empty gas, and that's not a good thing.
What happens when you don't get enough of it? Your bones become fragile, you feel fatigued, your muscles start twitching, you may also experience muscle pain. A 2020 study found that almost 76% of Indians have vitamin D deficiency.
76% of Indians have vitamin D deficiency. So that's something which, isn't that something that is important? And maybe you should have started your video with that information instead of trying to scare people about vitamin D. And this is not just a problem in India, by the way. Here in United States also, there have been various studies studies that have been done on the basis of how they define vitamin D deficiency. There are numbers from anywhere from 50% to 80% of Americans as vitamin D deficient. Now, the problem with some of these studies is that they define vitamin D deficiency as anything less than 20 nanogram per milliliter vitamin D serum level in your blood, or sometimes like 15 nanograms per milliliter, which is very low. So if you have that threshold, then you may come up with a number like, oh, most people have sufficient vitamin D levels in their blood. But if you actually take a more reasonable approach and you say a healthy vitamin D level is something like 50 or 55, then majority of people in America, and for that matter majority of people in this world, they will be deficient in vitamin D.
Well, we spoke to some doctors and they pointed at pollution first of all. Higher pollution levels are connected with vitamin D deficiency, and very interestingly, it's the same for clothing. The more clothes you wear, the less you're exposed to the sun, and low exposure to the sun equals to low vitamin D. Also throw in the increasing nocturnal lifestyle, the trend of walking and working out indoors, the trend of spending more time between the four walls of your home or office. Long story short, vitamin D deficiency is a lifestyle problem in India. Should you be worried? Of course. Pregnant women who are vitamin D deficient are more likely to have gestational diabetes or a sudden rise in blood pressure, what's called preeclampsia.
So see, again, this is such an important news, and I am familiar with this because when I had my firstborn son, this was almost 20 years back, my wife had exactly this problem, preeclampsia. And back then we were living in Oregon, which is a state here in United States where you hardly get any sun. So pretty much the whole year it's cloudy and it's gloomy, so you don't get a lot of sun. So my wife was mostly staying indoors, and she probably had very low vitamin D, but back in those days, during annual health checkup, none of the doctors would even bother checking vitamin D levels. So I'm speculating that my wife had low vitamin D levels at that time. But what I do know for sure is that she developed this condition, preeclampsia, and this ended up actually complicating her pregnancy. And my firstborn son, he was actually born using an emergency C-section. So it was very scary. I was very young at that time. Firstborn son, I didn't know anything about preeclampsia or any of these things. So this was very scary. Luckily, everything went fine. Now my son is in high school and he is an awesome kid. So, there were no problems in the end. But this is an important information. And don't you think this kind of information should be shared with normal people? At least younger, pregnant women, they should know about these things. So instead of scaring people about vitamin D overdose and trying to scare them, hey, you are going to die if you are eating vitamin D or if you are taking vitamin D supplement. No, you're not going to die if you take vitamin D supplements. The only people who will get vitamin D toxicity are people who are taking ridiculous amounts of vitamin D. So there was this particular case, woman was supposed to take 100,000 IUs of vitamin D every month. So that was her monthly dosage. But through some miscommunication or God knows what happened, but she started taking 100,000 IUs of vitamin D, D3 supplementation every day. And then she continued taking it for like months. And then she started getting some of these symptoms of vitamin D toxicity, which is like, she was feeling headaches and some of the other things that she mentioned at the beginning of the video, and she went to her doctor, and that's when she found out that she had vitamin D toxicity. So vitamin D toxicity is very rare. Scaring people by saying that, hey, don't take vitamin D supplements because you will get vitamin D toxicity, that is highly irresponsible. Anyway, let's keep watching this video, but boy, this woman is really annoying me. This is like a hit job propaganda news.
D is essential for our health. When the Wuhan virus struck and the world's focus shifted to immunity, there was a sudden burst of information about vitamin D and its benefits. And that's how the journey to overdose began. And now that you have an idea about...
Okay, again, she says journey to overdose began. But where is the data? Where is the data which says that a whole bunch of people overdosed on vitamin D? Have you seen or read about a single case of anybody overdosing on vitamin D in the last 3 years? So this is just fear mongering.
Vitamin D, let's shift our focus back to overdose. How much is too much? It depends on your age. Infants up to 12 months are recommended not more than 10 micrograms of vitamin D. For 1 to 18 years, the daily intake should be 15 micrograms. And for adults up to 70 years, 20 micrograms.
Now, these numbers are obsolete. And the reason I know these numbers are obsolete is not because I am a doctor, so you should not trust what I am saying, but this is based on what my doctor told me and how much vitamin D supplementation I need to take to maintain my levels. So if you look at my vitamin D serum level, I am at 66. The healthy range is from 30 to 100, and I am smack in the middle of that, which is what my doctor said is a healthy range for someone of my age. And in order to maintain this level, you know how much supplementation I need? I am taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every day, 10,000 every day, and I combine it with vitamin K2, and I also take magnesium, and I take zinc, and I take few other minerals which were suggested to me by my doctor. So 10,000 is way over what the limit is. So if we go back to what she's saying if you are an adult, you should be taking 20 mcg. So if you do the conversion here, 20 mcg is 800 IU, only 800 IU. And if I take 800 IU, my vitamin D serum level in my blood will go back to what it was when I was diagnosed with vitamin D deficiency. And back then, this was like 2019 or 2018. At that time, my vitamin D level was 13 nanogram per milliliter. So right now it is 66. So I was somewhere here, which means I had severe vitamin D deficiency. In order to get to here, I had to take 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every day, and I have been taking it for the last 3 years now. So if I stop taking it, and I will show you the range, okay, so this is interesting. So if you see here, my number dropped to 34 in October 2021, and this is because I was also worried about vitamin D toxicity. So instead of taking 10,000 IUs, I dropped my daily dosage to 2,000 IU. Now 2,000 IU is still more than what she is recommending, because she's saying you should take 20 mcg, and 20 mcg is only 800 IU. So I was still taking 2000 IU, which is still more than what she is recommending, and my vitamin D level, if you look at my chart, it actually started dropping. It went all the way to 34, which is definitely not healthy. So the recommendation that she is telling you here, that you should never take more than 20 mcg, that's complete bullshit. You need to take as much as your body requires to maintain a healthy level. Now, because I have an autoimmune condition, I suffer from Hashimoto's, which kind of messes with my thyroid. I need more vitamin D to maintain my level. And so the numbers that I'm telling you, that's not one size fits all. So you may not need 10,000 IUs every day. Maybe you only need 2,000 IUs every day. So that's something that you will have to talk to your doctor and figure out. And you will have to do some trial and error. Like you start taking a certain dosage, then you go get your vitamin D levels tested in a month, and then see if it is going up or down or what's happening, and maybe you will have to calibrate it. So one size fits all, that's obviously not the case. We all are different, so we need to figure out the right dosage for each of us. But don't trust these numbers. Like, this is a recipe for disaster. If you think that only 20 mcg, which translates to 800 IUs, if you're only going to take 800 IUs of vitamin D, and if you are like someone like me who has thyroid issues or Hashimoto's or any other autoimmune condition, or if you are suffering from if you fall sick very often, which means your immune system is not very strong, then you are screwed if you take only 800 IUs.
People are exceeding these limits, and how? One doctor said she came across 3 such cases in the last 4 months, and all of them were children. She said some had vitamin levels as high as 180 nanomoles per liter.
180 nanomoles per liter, right? So let's see if that actually is even high. So if I convert that, that comes out to 72 nanogram per milliliter. If you come here and if you look at this chart, 72 is still in the green range. So when she's trying to make it so scary that, oh, this kid had 72 nanogram per milliliter of vitamin D serum level in his blood, that's not overdosing, okay? That's still within the normal healthy range. I'm willing to make a bet what she's thinking is the obsolete values, which some of the older charts, they used to suggest that your numbers should be around 30. That's what they said. They said 20 and 30 is what should be for your healthy bones. And beyond that, there was no medical data to suggest whether it was useful or not. So back in those days, the recommendation was that your vitamin D serum level should be around 30. Anything more than 30 is not going to help, and it might potentially cause hypercalcemia or some kind of toxicity. But that is no longer true. There is so much data, there is so much research data out there which basically says that your vitamin D level should be around 65 or 66. This is the optimal range if you want to have a healthy healthy immune system. If you are around 65, then you will most likely not suffer from autoimmune conditions, or if you already have an autoimmune disease or any kind of autoimmune condition, this will keep it in check, or at least it will dial it down. You won't have as much bad symptoms of it. So like if you suffer from chronic fatigue and if your vitamin D levels are low, then you will feel really bad. You will get up in the morning and you will feel tired and exhausted. Now if you start taking vitamin D supplements, it's not going to completely fix your problem, but it's going to make it better. You won't feel as bad. And also if you get infected with like COVID virus or some other kind of virus or bacteria, your immune system will be robust enough to mount and counter attack, and you may not even fall sick. You may be down for like maybe a day and then you are back on your feet. So when she points out this example of this kid and she's making it sound like that kid was about to die, that's bullshit.
Another had 150. What's the normal between 30 and 70?
30 and 70. So let's see. So according to her, your number should be between 30 and 70. So if we go here to 70, she's talking about, so there is unit conversion confusion here. So she's talking about nmol per liter. So 70 nmol per liter is how much? 28. So she's saying you should be below 30. According to her, your vitamin D serum level should be below 30. If you exceed 30, according to her, that's an overdose. And that is wrong. That's an obsolete vitamin D guideline. Don't you think this is irresponsible for a news media to put out a video like that where they have absolutely wrong information? So I have this My Hill chart. This is from my Quest diagnostic medical report. And this is the platform that my doctor uses to share the results for me. And here it is clearly showing that the green zone is from 30 to 100 and you should be ideally somewhere in the middle. And she is saying, oh, you should be below 30, and then that kid was around 30, which means that kid was actually in a healthy range. So that one kid was around 30 and the other kid was around 70 or something, right? So those kids were not overdosed. They had healthy vitamin D levels.
So what explains such high vitamin D levels? The growing obsession with immunity. Ever since the Wuhan virus struck, people are casually popping pills. So
people are casually popping pills. You see even the language that she's using. People are not casually popping pills. People had their loved ones die of COVID-19. Okay, this was not a joke. And so people are taking vitamin D because they know that vitamin D boosts your immune system and it will help you fight these viral diseases. That's why they are taking vitamin D. They are not popping pills. They are not junkies. My God, this biased language, I'm really triggered. This woman is really annoying me.
Much so that the global vitamin market that was around $1.1 billion in 2020 is now expected to reach $1.6 billion by 2025.
So what's wrong with that? The vitamin D market has expanded because more people are now aware of the benefits of vitamin D, and that's why they are buying vitamin D. So what's wrong with that? Vitamin D pills are not that expensive compared to drugs that you buy from these pharma companies, which cost you hundreds of dollars. Vitamin D is cheap. I can go to my local Costco pharmacy and I can get a 1-year supply of vitamin D and it costs me less than like $15. For $15, I can get 1-year supply of vitamin D. So what's wrong with that?
People have safely assumed that there is nothing wrong in taking multivitamins whenever they want to, and that when it comes to vitamin D, there is nothing called too much. One of the doctors we spoke to also told us that to an extent the fault lies with physicians. Many, we are told are prescribing too many vitamins. Pharma companies are not complaining, and for obvious reasons. But it's the people who stand to suffer. Do you know what an overdose does to your body? It leads to headaches, what's called a false feeling of hypertension. You can also lose your appetite, have a dry mouth, be constipated, or have diarrhea. Vitamin D also controls the production of calcium in your body. Too much vitamin D means too much calcium, what doctors called hypercalcemia.
So this hypercalcemia, at one point even I was worried about hypercalcemia. Then I did my research and I found that the odds of you getting hypercalcemia, they become a real threat once your vitamin D serum level goes above 100. Above 100. Now I am taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 supplement every day. 10,000 every day for the last 3 years. And my numbers are stuck at 66. It's not budging. If you look at last year also, this was July 8, 2022, it was 67. And this year, July 6, 2023, it's 66. So it's basically a flat line now.
It can then result in kidney stones, affect your heart and lungs. If you've been throwing up or feeling nauseous, it could be excess vitamin D. Talk to your doctor.
Now, what she did not talk about is that you should take vitamin D3 supplements with vitamin K2. I also take magnesium and zinc, but vitamin K2 is important because when you combine vitamin D3 with vitamin K2, then the risk of hypercalcemia is reduced, because what happens is without vitamin K2, there are chances that the calcium will start depositing in your arteries, and that might lead to hypertension and might even cause cardiovascular diseases. But if you take vitamin K2 with vitamin D3, then the calcium will go in the right places, which is your bones and your teeth, and so you will not have any of the risks, including kidney stones. So I will put link in the video description below of all the vitamins that I am taking. Now again, I'm not a doctor and I'm not prescribing anything to you guys. I'm just sharing my personal experience with vitamin D3, and I would encourage that you guys talk to your doctor to get the accurate information, but don't fall for these kinds of propaganda video. So anyway, that's the end of the video. She trashes vitamin D a little more, and I don't want to watch the rest of the video. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. If you have any questions or comment, feel free to share them in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.